Hey there, Spray Wash Pro. Today we're going to talk about cleaning storage tanks. Now, storage tanks are really an interesting niche market in the cleaning industry. But a lot of times cleaners shy away from them because, frankly, they're scared about what's in the tank. There's lots of different tanks out there. Fuel storage tanks, oxygen storage tanks at medical facilities, hydrogen tanks, but most of them are carrying a liquid inside of it. Sometimes your storage tanks will be filled with a gas. However, it's really about the same as a liquid-filled storage tank. But people see the storage tanks and assume that these stains that are coming out of them aren't just a typical biological stain. They're very concerned that whatever's in the tank is leaking out, and they're not qualified to clean the tanks. Well, truth is, we find that most of the time it's just a biological material growing on the tank. See, the tank with the liquid inside of it maintains a cooler temperature than the outside air. The metal part of the tank will heat up and cool down during the day's heat, and this creates just an awesome place for biological growth to flourish. That's why you see so many tanks that are dirty, and they actually follow a very similar growth pattern around them, where it starts growing from the top and then shedding down to the sides. A lot of times this is why people think they might be leaking, but they're not. It's just a biological growth. Most of these smaller tanks, excluding fuel tanks, are pressurized. You'll know if there's a leak, and they will be taken out of service by management. You'll actually see fumes escaping from the tank, and there won't be any pressure registering on the gauges. Now, because we're dealing with biological growth, most of the time this will be cleaned by our good old friend bleach, which is one of the best things we've found for getting rid of organic growth. Now, you'll also want to use a lot of surfactant on these tanks because you're dealing with a vertical surface, so an added surfactant will help give you some cling time. It's your choice whether you use a detergent or not. Typically, we're finding that we're washing this at anywhere between a 10 to a 30% SH volume on there. 30% typically would not be needed over the whole tank, just in the really bad areas. We like to start light with a 10% and then go back and hit the real bad areas, maybe with a 30% mixture of SH, and let that dwell for a little while, and then begin a rinse process. As you can see on this application video, the key is just to get our biocide on the tank and let it start doing its job. It's fine to apply it at low pressure. Now, whenever you start rinsing, you really want to use low pressure and high volume. 8 gallons a minute is fantastic, 10 or even 12 is great too, but you don't want to exceed about 1500 psi. A really high PSI can actually start stripping paint away from it, and if the paint's been oxidized, you'll have a lot of striping that you'll have to deal with afterwards. Most time, these facility managers just want the biological growth off. They're trying to stave off painting for as long as they can because that's a fairly manually labor-intensive process. Regular cleanings can keep the paint good on these tanks for 5 or maybe even 10 years. Heavy lichen growth can be especially difficult to deal with. If you're unsure of what lichen is, L-I-C-H-E-N is the spelling, I encourage you to look that up on the internet. But these leafy biological growths typically occur around the top of these tanks. They do root in a little bit to the paint, so we really don't encourage high pressure on removing them. If you kill them with a biocide, such as bleach, you'll find that they will weather away. Kill them, rinse them down with medium to low pressure, and then let nature take its course, and they should weather off within 1 to 2 months. You'll always want to let your property manager or facility managers know this is why you're not trying to manually remove them so you don't damage the paint layer that they are embedded into. If it's imperative to your facility managers that the lichen are removed, then you might want to look at renting a lift for this project. Because of the rounded nature of most storage tanks, we really don't recommend using ladders on there, but there are several different types of lifts such as a boom lift or a self-propelled lift that would be great to use that can get you up to the top of a storage tank. Now, if you have electronics on one of the tanks, this is an area where you really want to use a lot of caution and mask those off. Remember, bleach and surfactants make water wetter, meaning it will get into areas where regular rainwater won't get into. So if you have electronics, even though they might be out in the elements on a daily basis, go ahead and mask those electronic elements off. You can always go in there afterwards and clean them, hand clean them with a rag or a sponge. Another type of storage tank that takes some special precautions is an enclosed fuel storage tank. A lot of times we'll find these on Class A type properties, and it'll be where the generator fuel tank is being held. There might be a vented structure or small building around that. Many times there's not a drain in these buildings. There's actually what looks like a drain in the floor, but that might be a secondary containment drain in case a diesel leak or a fuel leak ever develops. You don't want your wash water draining in to that secondary drain there, because then you'll be filling up their secondary drain tank. Should you find something like this, the facility manager should be familiar and can give you the right directions, but you'll also want to have to pump your water out of this building that's enclosing the storage tank on there. When we encounter an enclosed storage tank, typically speaking, we'll use our reclaim system to pump out that water and discharge that into a landscape area. This isn't contaminated water with petroleum product. The building and tank has just collected dust and biological growth over the past year or so, which we've cleaned off. Additionally, whenever you see any damage on the tank, such as excessive rust or something that just doesn't look right, be sure to photo document that and point that out to the facilities manager. They will appreciate it. Also, remember, avoid using high pressure around valves or electronics. Just to recap what we've talked about with storage tanks is use a low pressure application whenever you are cleaning these of biological growth. Typically speaking, we're using bleach as our biocide on there. You'll want to use extra surfactants because that's going to help give you cling to your vertical surfaces out there. Whenever it comes time to rinse, high volume, low pressure is your friend. You also don't want to go hit any of the fittings with high pressure. Really and truly, we recommend a low pressure, say 1500 psi or less. Now, one caveat to the low pressure is if you've been contracted to remove flaking paint for that, getting it ready for a recoating or repainting, you'll need higher pressure. That's also really getting into a specialty type cleaning and prep work that we're not really discussing on this video. We're mainly talking about removing biological growth. Remember also to mask off any electronics that you're coming in contact with, and don't use high pressure around any fittings. Rinse, rinse, rinse. Most of these storage tanks are made out of metal, so we really recommend rinsing. Bleach is an oxidizing agent. It can also be corrosive to metal. It's really a great idea to put a bleach neutralizer on these tanks at the end. Something like Agent Halt is one particular product that we use to neutralize bleach whenever we're working on storage tanks. Thank you so much for your time watching this video. We really appreciate it and hope it's been instructional and helpful in your washing career. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Our email address and phone number will appear at the end of this video. Hey, we hope you have a great day and thank you for being a part of Spray Wash Pro.